What's up, everybody? Today I'm going to be showing you how to use flexbox with tailwind css. So what I've done here is I've spun out an application using Vite. So if you don't know what Vite is, it's basically create react app but better, yeah, upgraded. And I've also added tailwind css to this project. So if you don't know how to do that, you should head down to the tailwind documentation. They have step-by-step guide, very easy and straightforward. But we'll not be focusing on that today. What we'll be focusing on is just basically how to use Flexbox with it. So, well, let's just get straight into it. I mean, no time to waste time. So what I'm going to do here is basically start from a blank canvas. As you can see, I have only one div. So we'll begin by adding um child div. So this one here is the parent div, and this one here is the child div. Right. So to see how Flexbox works, I have to define some things down. So in this child div, I'm going to do is add a class name and make this a box. So I'll give this a width 28, height 28, rounded MD, and we give this a BG red 500. So as you can see on in my browser, the box created. So what I'm going to do is duplicate this 3 times, right? So we have 3 of it. But instead of having the same classes over and over again, what we can do is just copy one of these, go to this our index.css file. You should also have all these things defined here. That's without this thing won't work in your application. What we can add here is add layer, and in this layer we can add component, yes, because what I want to add is a component, and have a box. We can also use apply right here, and in the apply we can pop out all those classes. What this allows us to do is use this box in replace it with all these duplicate styles. So you see they all have the same style. We just add this box and we can have as much as we want instead of having that same style written over and over again. So we can turn this to blue, and we can also turn this to green, right? So to begin, to use flexbox, we have to target the parent container, right? So how do we start using flexbox? Well, we have to give it a display of flex. And in Tailwind, how we do that is just to add flex, easy peasy, like that. And you see, second we add flex, it becomes like this. It all goes on a row, and it's just in a row as you can see. So flex has two direction, row and column. If I want this to go to a column, what I can do is add flex col, and it goes in a column. If I turn this to row, it goes on a row. The row is the default, so you don't actually have to add this row like this, but if you want to go on column, you can add the column. And there's also a little something else. We can have a row reverse. So it reverses it. So as you can see, the first color here is actually red, but the first one we're seeing here is the green, which is the last one here. So it reverses it. Let me add the background to this parent so we can see what we are doing. So add the gray of 300 and have a P of 5. Yeah, so we can actually see and give it some rounded borders, because rounded borders just make it look better. So as you can add, okay, let's go back to the flex box that we're talking about. So as you can add flex row reverse, we can also add flex column reverse. So that's adding flex col reverse. As you can see, it reverses. The green is the first, even when the green was the last one right here. So if I remove the column, the red becomes the first, as you can see. Add, add the reverse back, the green becomes the first. So that's just basically it for flex directions. So the second one I'm going to talk about is gap. So I'm just going to remove this and add gap. 5. So as I add gap 5, you can see it gives us space, right? Each of them now have space between them. We can actually add gap for only the row or column. So we can add gap um, gap x. So x is meaning x axis. And when they say x axis, that means sort of row, right? So row. So if I say x3 is going to add spaces, yeah, 3, which is 12 pixels. If I over it, you can see it's 12 pixels that's adding in between them. If I said y, it will add them to the y-axis. Well, because there's really nothing in the y-axis, just only one. You can't really see each of them. So, but the safest one to just do is just use gap and add it straight without telling it x or y. It will accommodate for the x-axis and the y-axis as well. So that's for flex gap. So the second one I'm going to talk about here is flex wrap. Now, flex wrap is something that's very nice that can make your whole application responsive. So to show how flex wrap works, I need this into overflow, right? So what I'm going to do is copy this and just duplicate it a couple of times. So right now, as you can see, it overflows. We have this whole thing overflowing right here in the screen. So what we can do here is give this a flex wrap, and bam, as you can see that it becomes very responsive and it wraps. So as I increase the screen, it's also going to accommodate for that as well. So if I come here and I increase this, as you can see, it accommodates for that. And if I decrease the screen size, so it's just very fluid. And we also have flex wrap reverse, which kind of takes the whole thing upside down. So it starts with the green one, because the green one is the last one, and it goes from down and does it. So it's basically like the flex row reverse or flex column reverse, just reverses the whole thing. And we also have flex no wrap, which is default, and you're just telling it not to wrap. So that's for the flex wrap. So let's move on to justify content. So justify content, very, very nice, very exciting. I'm pretty sure if you use Flexbox before, probably in normal CSS, you've used this. I love it, everybody loves it. So what justify content does, before we can really see it, what I'm going to do here is increase this width of this container to fill the screen. So I'm going to say width full, that is 100%, width 100%. So as you can see, it fills the screen now. What we can do now is if I say justify content between, but with tailwind we just write justify between, and you see this, it spreads through the width. There's space in between every single one of them. So if I expand the screen size, you'll see the space, it accommodates for the screen size and it's very fluid. The space remains, makes it automatically responsive. So the justified content doesn't just have space between, justify. So let me move over it and you can see here. So you see justify content space between right here. So we have other ones, not just space between. We have space around, which is very similar. But what space around does, it doesn't just add space to the in between them. It has them add the space around them. So as you can see, there's some spaces at the beginning, space in the middle, space and a space at the end as well, not just in between them. We also have evenly, justify evenly, which is justify space evenly, very similar to around and between as well, but there's evenly space. So the space that he add here is the same amount of space he adds here, and the same amount of space he adds here, and also the same amount of space it adds here as well. We should distribute them evenly. We have more. There are more. They didn't just stop at that. We have start, which as you will have guessed is the default, and we also have end, which is if you are writing this with normal CSS, you have to write flex start and flex end, not just end and start. So if I use end, you see it takes it to the far end, right? So we also have one more, which is center. What center does, it takes the whole thing. three of them, and throws it in the center. As you can see, they're now exactly in the center. Let me increase the size of the so in the very center of the screen, and as it's very responsive, as I increase the screen size, it still remains in the center. So let's move on to align item. So to show how align item works, I'm going to have to increase the height of this parent container so that we can really be able to visualize it. I made the height 200 pixels. Now, as you can see, it's the height is increased, and these three boxes, they are not in the middle. They are not in the middle. To put it in the middle of this container, what we can do is use align item. So when working with tailwind, we just write items, not align items. Look at items, and we can say item center. And what happens? It does that calculation for you and puts it in the middle. And not just that, it makes it fluid, it makes it responsive. So it's right in the middle. Align items so it has a couple of it has end, which takes it right to the end. The reason why it's not reaching the end of the end because of the padding we put. So if I remove the padding that is here, you see it to go to the very end. Yeah. So we also have baseline, which is very similar to center, but baseline works with it if there's a text. So if I add text inside this thing, the, the text is used as the baseline. So right now the text baseline is around this area. So that's why it's up. If I remove this one right here, you can see everything goes down. Yeah, you can see the whole thing goes down. So the text, this one doesn't have a text. So that's for baseline. You probably would not use baseline that much. And there's stretch. So stretch is kind of the default, right? Stretch is the default. So that's really it for align items. I like to use center because it has the best use case. And yeah, let's move on. Let's move on to align content. So align content, very similar, but what we have to do here is increase the height of this thing to 400 pixels so we can see how align content works. And I also remove the justify and the items center. And not just that, I will also increase this a couple of times, and I'll add flex wrap. This is so I can show you guys how the align content works very well. So to start with align content, we just write content. So we can write content center, content start, content end, content between, around, and evenly with none. So if I said content, what, let me remove this last one here so we can really see it. Okay, now we have just two here. So if I said content between, what do you John, guess what's going to happen if I wrote content between? Bam. You saw what happened right there. Two of them, right? They just spread, and they are between the top and the bottom. So very similar to justify between is when they are on a row, it justifies them between themselves. This add maximum space in between both of them. But the content between it has to be on a column. That is why I had to increase the size of the parent and add more elements so we can see it in action. You can also add around, which does this, add spaces around. You can add evenly, basically the same thing. You can add start, can add end. If I add end, it throws the whole thing to the end. When I mean end, to the down part, and that's basically how the whole thing works. But I want to realize something that we'll be doing here. Throughout this tutorial, we've only been working with the parent. We've actually not touched the I'll call them the children elements, right? And that's one powerful thing about Flexbox. We really don't even need to touch these people, these children right here. The parents, we can control everything, most things just from the parents. But that doesn't mean we can't actually do anything with the children. So I'm going to be showing you some few things we can do with the children. I'm going to remove all this SS. I'm going to remove the content end and all these. I'm going to remove the height, and I'm also going to add back I also remove flex wrap, and I'll add back the padding that I added before, which was padding all round of 20 pixels. So we can do a couple of things with the children. First thing we can do here is I can add flex grow to this one. If I add flex grow, as you can see, it increased the length, the width. It grew it to take maximum space. So if I increase the size, you can see that as the screen increases, the length increases, the width increases. As it reduces, the width reduces, it can accommodate for the screen size basically. Yeah. So that was the flex grow will make it happen. If I went here and added a flex grow for this green one as well, both of them would grow evenly to the same size, and this one. The thing about Flexbox is that it really calculates the whole thing for you, and that's very beautiful. That's one beautiful thing about it. So as you can see, both of them are now sort of the same. They are the same weight, and they kind of increase and decrease with the screen size. But the blue one kind of remains the same weight. The blue one has a fixed weight and doesn't really grow with the screen size. So we can actually calculate this and do a lot of things with this. If I can make this a flex grow of, I believe if I use this here of 7, give this a flex grow of 2, I just give this a flex grow of 1. So the usual flex grow is going to be equal to 1. So as you can see, this red one is the biggest, followed by the green one, followed by the blue one because of the amount we put. So we have a flex grow of 7, a flex grow of 2, and the blue has a flex grow of 1. That way we can just see. So as I increase the screen size, you can see it very well. The red one is clearly the largest, followed by the green, followed by the blue. Because as according to the rules that we added here, flex grow of 7, flex grow of 2, and flex grow, which also is equal to flex grow of 1. So as we have flex grow, we also have flex shrink. So let me get rid of all the flex grow, and we can add flex shrink. So if I add the flex shrink of 0, I believe. So the flex shrink just does opposite of what flex grow does. And I add a flex shrink of 0, and I increase the size of this one, which is width 500 pixels. Let me make this 500 pixels. 500 pixels is a bit too much. Let's make this 200. So yeah, so right now we're not really in the best condition to use flex shrink, so the way this whole thing is set, but I'll probably do a better tutorial on flex shrink. But it does basically take it as flex string kind of does the opposite of what flex glue does. Flex string makes the items to shrink. But the examples we're using would not work. It's actually added with, but you don't see it. We don't actually see it in action, which is why I said we'll probably do a better tutorial on flex string later in the future. So let's go on. Let's add flex basics. So flex basics is used to add width to the flex item. So instead of using width to a flex child, you better to use the basics, flex basics. So if I add Flex. I believe it's basis as in BASIS. That's why I did see any of the competition. BASI. Yes, yeah. So as you can see, we have 0, 1, 2, and all that. You can add the flex basis of 14. It will create the top at COVID. That's actually smaller than the usual bit. But if I added 30, 36, you can see it's larger. So flex basic is basically very similar to width, but um it works best with a flex container because it also adds to the responsivity of flexbox. So it's better to use the flex basics instead of using the width when you're dealing with flex children like this. So let's move on to align self. So to use align self, let's increase the height here again to, let's say, 400 pixels. That was 40, sorry, 400 pixels. And align self is very similar to align item, but align item you add it to the parent, while align self you add it to the child. And align self, with align self you can override whatever you wrote on the whatever rules you added with align item. So if I add align item of align that'll be items center and bring these whole things to the center, I can right here just add self of end, and that one will throw it to the end. So as you can see, I've thrown the green one down. Yeah, so it's basically the same thing with this item center, but we can add it to individual child components of the flex container. So I can say flex end, I can say flex start, which throws it up. I can say flex center, which kind of brings it to the center, which is what we already have. I can say flex stretch, which is default, which is up and all that. So I can come here and say self end, and we have self center as well. So as you can see, you can kind of throw things around a little bit when using flexbox and align self. So thank you if you enjoyed this tutorial. If there's anything else you would like to learn about, you can just let me know in the comment section. I will definitely read them and I will definitely make a tutorial about it. See you all next time. Have a blessed day.